Okay, welcome to No CS Degree. This is a show where I talk to developers that are self-taught or have been to coding bootcamps, and I find out how they've transitioned into tech. I'm joined today by Aniel, who was formerly a teacher and then went to the Practicum by Yandex bootcamp and is now a developer. So, Aniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, no worries. So, first of all, you were a teacher beforehand. So, what made you want to move from being a teacher to being a developer?
Yeah, so actually, one of the biggest thing was that I kind of wanted the freedom to work from anywhere. It wasn't so much, I mean, don't get me wrong, the money, definitely was, and it was nice, to see six-figure salaries and all of that, but I really didn't care much about that. It was more about the freedom that I could have working from anywhere. And also there's just so much growth in web development in general, you never really stop learning. Whereas if you're teaching, and no offense to teachers out there, it's just you're kind of being repetitive all over and all over and all over again. So it gets a little bit boring. And again, no offense for teachers, just my opinion on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think teachers probably do develop in other ways, but if you're teaching history, the history's not going to, your curriculum isn't going to change over the course of your lifetime, probably. Whereas web development, changes all the time. And what people are using now, they definitely weren't using, 5 or 10 years ago in terms of, lots of the frameworks and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like I mentioned, there's just so much growth in web development in general. Since I started, I literally haven't stopped learning something new, almost every week, if not every other day. It's just insane amount of information out there. And you kind of have to stay relevant, that's, I guess if you don't like learning, I would say, yeah, probably web development is not for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think you can look at these things in two different ways. You can look at it in quite, I guess, a negative way and be like, oh man, I have to keep on learning and keep on adding to my skills. Because lots of jobs, lots of jobs you can just learn it once and then it's pretty much going to be the same for the rest of your career. Whereas, I guess over the last 5 years or so, 5-10 years ago, lots of people just use, JQuery, and now, you kind of need to know React or Vue or Angular or, something like that. So...
Yeah, I mean, again, definitely, it's kind of if you, again, make it a hobby of learning, it's also a good thing. But it's exactly like you said, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, we were a lot of companies were using jQuery. Now people are jQuery, what is that? That it's kind of maybe not useless, but that's legacy code now. It's why are you even using that, right? So it's just such a fast moving pace, web development in general, so fast.
Yeah,
moving.
Definitely. So what were your kind of first steps of getting into coding?
Yeah, so I actually kind of struggle a little bit with web development, and I actually, to be honest, I hated it a little bit at first, and I'll explain why I hated it a little bit first. So I did a bootcamp at first, and it was really bad. I wasn't getting attention from the teachers and the tutors. I would get tutors not answer I'm not saying right away, but they would go 3 days without answering, and I was just stuck looking at a screen without knowing what to do. So that was frustrating. That's why I said I hated it a little bit. And after a while, again, if I had to do that bootcamp again, no, never again. So that was my first step. I am lucky enough that I kind of went through that though to kind of know how to not do a boot camp as well. You know, like if I were ever to like kind of be a mentor in a boot camp, I would never be like
Hmm.
that, you know? So like that kind of helped me. So, but that was definitely my first step. You know, after a while, like again, it was something that even though it was like horrible because of the mentors and the material up there, I did enjoy it, you know. It's just, it was frustrating not having someone to help me, you know. That was my first step into it. Then I actually, after a while, I definitely decided I wasn't ready. And this is not like, oh, you were definitely ready, you just didn't know. No, no, no. I knew I was not ready for it. Like 100%, I knew I wasn't ready for it. Like then I did this practicum Bootcamp, and that's when I actually knew I was definitely not ready for the field. Very simple, very basic stuff like, you know, how to really use CSS Grid or how to really use CSS Flex. And I was thinking of going into the field without really knowing that. You know, that's insane. So that was, you know, my second step was again do another boot camp where I really again learned a lot, and I actually had to relearn a lot of the things again. You know, CSS, JavaScript. JavaScript was a big one, of course. You know, backend development, front end development with React. You know, I had a base, but it wasn't a stable base. You know, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to just look at the docs and I can figure it out. No, no, no. Like I could not have done that. Whereas after finishing practicum, I had all the base and I was like, okay, okay, I'm feeling good. Let's do this, you know?
Awesome.
So, yeah.
So how come Practicum was like a much better experience than the first bootcamp you tried?
Yeah. So, first of all, the community, right? It was a very good community. Like everyone was not always online, but always willing to help out. So that's definitely a big one, I think, when it comes to learning how to code. If you learn how to code by yourself, chances are you will fail. Unless, I mean, and this is again, like, unless you're like really, really want and you're like very strict with yourself, congrats. But most of the people self-taught, it is difficult. You don't have the community behind it. Um, so the community was great. Um, the platform itself was also interactive, you know, like, whereas, yeah, they teach you logic, you have to solve a problem. But when you actually had to do like the project itself, it was like something completely different related to what you just studied, though, you know, it wasn't just, okay, take all of this, put it here. No, no. It was more like, okay, let's see if you actually understand what you just learned, you know, and put it into practice. So I really like that. And also like the mentors that I had, like the mentors that I had again, like within, you know, less than an hour or like less than 2 hours, they would like answer, and, you know, and it's a good feeling, you know, having that um, kind of relation because like, you know, if the mentor's always there to help you, kind of pushes you and you can move faster as well. You can grow a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds a much better experience than like waiting 3 days in the first boot camp you went to get a response. And yeah, I think it's a really good point about community. It is, I think, you know, most things are easier with other people instead of just trying to like just persist completely on your own. So that sounds really smart. Um, what like were you learning remotely? Were you just learning online? Yeah.
I Yeah, I was learning fully online. At the time, I was actually in Portugal where I started doing the practicum one. But again, like it didn't really, it didn't feel like that remote because you had like such a strong community, and also like the mentor would had a live coding, you know, every I think it was every Friday or every Saturday, you know. So like it was like the community again was there, made it a little bit less lonely, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that sounds good. Um, So was this kind of like a full time? Were you working like Monday to Friday, like 9 to 5 every day kind of thing?
I wasn't working. I was working online at the time because it was like when pandemic first started. So I was working all online, and I mean, we all know how online
Yeah,
work
sure.
is. It was a little bit more relaxed. I had more time to focus on web development, you know. But yeah, I was working, I guess.
Cool. Nice one. So can you tell us like how you got into doing the work with doing mentoring for other people learning to code?
Yeah, actually, like this came like right after I finished the Practicum Bootcamp because although I knew like a lot of the things already, like I was ready for the, you know, for the work field. I wanted actually to get into it, but I kind of wanted to like be very solid at the things that I really wanted to do. So I actually the first step that I did was kind of like find a few people that wanted like actual, you know, to work together and to also like maybe they weren't at the same level as I was. They were just starting out. So I found like I think I had like three. Yeah, I had three, and like I kind of helped them a little bit. And that's really how I started with mentoring. But I didn't make it like a full-time job or like anything like that. It was more like, oh, you know, let's do this. You're helping me, I help you. Like they were helping me because like I was having to like really explain things into details, like enough details that it really like sunk into my head. Like, okay, this is how I need to do this. You know, things like that.
Yeah, I think like there's a lot of people that say, you know, the best way to learn is to teach. So did you find
Yeah.
that your coding knowledge improved as you worked as a mentor?
Definitely, definitely. You know, like when you're teaching, you kind of when you're coding, you're thinking for like, okay, this makes sense for me. Whereas when you're teaching, you're thinking, okay, how can I make this make sense for that person that I'm helping? You know, how can I make it easier for them? So yeah, definitely helps because like you kind of have to explain it in a way that makes sense, and not just for you, but for the person that you're helping. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, that makes lots of sense. So I think you're saying before the call that you're actually moving into a new job with kind of like games development and NFTs, which is very kind of new and like what everyone's talking about in this year. So yeah, how did you get that job, and like what interests you about NFTs and stuff?
Yeah, so actually, I'm starting pretty soon with them, like I mentioned to you. And here's the thing, like I told you at the beginning of like, you know, the interview is that if you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to, you know, progress, you're probably are going to be stuck or you're going to be called what people in this field call coding monkeys.
Sure.
You know, it's a bad term, but it's actually, you know, just coding always the same thing or like boring things. And that's not the kind of job that I want. I don't want my job to be boring. And I found this opportunity that I don't just get to do front end, but I also, if I wanted to, I could get into working with smart contracts, you know, and I think that would be the next big thing within, you know, the next 2, 3 years, you know, even less. They're already becoming big and big, you know, bigger and bigger. So it's definitely, you know, like I was like, okay. And actually I contacted one of the guys, the lead developer, because I actually with him before. He's actually the co-creator of Chakra UI. And I was like, hey, I saw that you guys posted this. Are you guys looking for a React developer or do you have anything open? He was like, oh, yeah, I didn't even know you were in Beijing. I was like, yeah, I'm in Beijing. Do you have anything open? Do you have any openings? And he was like, yeah, we do. We are actually like we are hiring. We're hiring big right now. So, you know, why don't you come in for an interview? I interview with them. I like what they're doing, you know, like NFT for video games. That sounds very interesting. I will be doing front end development, but again, I can go into smart contracts if I wanted to, and definitely that's kind of my next step, going into smart contracts and Web3, and we'll see how it goes. I think I think it's definitely the future.
Nice one. Yeah, that sounds really interesting, and good that you were able to get a job through networking, which is like, I think I speak to a lot of people, and that seems like a really like super effective and like common thing, but also something that maybe other people overlook because it's easier to get a job that way than sending 100 applications.
Yeah, I mean, and with that, I was always lucky that I didn't really rush into the field. I was never unemployed. I wasn't I didn't go from not having a job to starting to learn to coding, that then to really going hardcore to, applying 100+ jobs. I never had to do that. One, I was comfortable with my job. I was comfortable where I was, and I always like to learn, so I wanted to learn even more. In a way, it depends really on what you want. Do you want to apply for 100+ jobs? You can, nothing wrong with that. And also, I was kind of looking for a good company that fits me, that fits what I wanted to do as well. Of course, I had interviews with companies where, even though, I did everything and I think I was the better candidate, I guess, I got ghosted. And that will happen to a lot of people, it's normal. It's annoying. If I could change that, I would. It's not gonna change. That's just a fact.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have when you were learning at Practicum, did you learn things like, Git and making good portfolio and stuff?
Yeah. Again, I had a previous base, but definitely they kind of they help you along the way. They don't just say, okay, you're done with the bootcamp, you do you. No. They kind of help you along the way. And even I think even after a while, if you still need help, finding a job, they still kind of help you with writing a good resume or writing a cover letter. Actually, they have something called Ask Me Anything Wednesday, where there's someone over there always helping. So I mean, it's great. You have that. Portfolio wise, I mean, they kind of give you ideas as to what to include, but that's really up to you. How do you really want to build your developer portfolio? It's really up to you. They just give you ideas and general tips on how it should look like and what content it should have.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And yeah, it sounds good that they give you some support for looking for jobs and stuff like that. So what was when you were at the bootcamp, was there kind of a main project that you did throughout the course?
There's actually there are two big projects that you actually have to do. One is actually they're again kind of guiding you through the steps of how to do it, and not guiding you, but giving you the information on how to do it. And actually the final project, you kind of have to, I guess, review everything and then you do it by yourself, without much help. It's for you to struggle a little bit, I also think this is very important in web development. I think you need to struggle a little bit. The answers are not just, I'm not gonna just message you, okay, here's the answer. That's not really the way of learning. At least that's not the way Practicum did it either. They help you, yes, but they're not going to give you answers, especially again with the big projects that you have to do.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. And yeah, I think I think that's smart as well, because if skills just feed you the answers, you're not really obviously learning anything. So
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, I think when it comes to learning, it's good to give like a push, but it's not good to just like give the answers, like, I often get, for example, like even I get messages from people like asking me for help, and I'm all for helping people. But sometimes I get messages that it's like, have you tried something as simple as looking online? It seems like it's a lot faster for them to just go directly to the source than to actually look and struggle a little bit. That's the kind of like, the kind of thing that I actually am against it. One, because like I really struggle when I was doing my boot camp first, like you have to struggle. You have to do your own research. You have to read the docs by yourself. You don't have someone there holding the hands. And you won't have someone holding your hand when you're like working or like you're doing a freelance project. It's all you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it kind of reminds me of when I was in school and like learning French. Our teacher would say, look it up in the dictionary. Don't like, because we would put our hand up and say, what's the word for like this? And she's like, look it up. Don't just ask me. So
Yeah, I mean, again with that, like definitely there should be a balance, there should be a balance, at least as a tutor. It's like there should be a balance between, okay, please go look it up, and like when you see that the person really cannot do it, that's when you kind of go, okay, let's go through it together. Let's go through it together and let's see what happens. Let's see if you can get the answers, if I help a little bit.
yeah, that's a good point. So when you came out of the Practicum Bootcamp, were you kind of, was React your specialty?
It was, yeah. It was. I became really good with React, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I became really good with React. Like we learned the MERN stack, Mongo, Express, React, and Node. You do backend. I'm not a backend developer. Like, there's really not a full stack developer, unless you do both things really good, you're not a full stack developer. Um, you do full stack development in Practicum, but you can decide which one you want more, back end or front end. Again, like when I came out, I said, okay, I don't like back end. I cannot see what I'm building, not clearly at least. So I went into like more into front end, and I decided to focus heavily on front end development.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think it seems very smart for, like I interview a lot of developers on Node.js degree, and it seems smart when people kind of specialize in one thing, especially when they're starting out in their careers. So they can provide a lot of value to company and say like, I'm awesome at React or I'm awesome at this thing, rather than being like okay at lots of things.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is like, with if you choose front end or if you choose back end, you will never be 100% at both of them. You kind of have to choose and get better at it. It's about that. Like I think that's game. Choose one path, get really good. When you feel like you kind of master it, move to back end or move to front end, depending on which one you started with. With me, like I feel like with front end, there's just so much that I still have to learn. And again, most developers really think that front end is just making things look pretty and like learning just React or Vue or Angular. Yeah, that's not it. That's not all of it. You have all of these things behind it, like how is JavaScript working behind the scenes? Why is React doing the React way, or like why is Angular doing the Angular way? So all of this, like I think, are really important for front-end development. Once you have a basic of all JavaScript, every other framework I think becomes easier as well. Whether you want to go with Node or React or Vue or Angular.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point there to make sure you know the fundamentals of JavaScript before going into things like React. Because I guess I see quite a lot of people jump straight into React and they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, like this is again, like when I actually started mentoring people, like I would always really tell them, okay, like, I can help you, but please learn the basics. Like, let's learn the basic. But the basics are boring. Why should we do it? Like who wants to do basic? Nah, screw that. So we don't want that. Yeah, but unfortunately, like most errors are because basic errors actually. And I actually had a really good friend in the web development community tell me that React, Angular, or Vue, most of the errors are not related to the frameworks. They're related to JavaScript. Everything comes down to JavaScript.
Wow. Yeah, it's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
So apart from, I think your tips so far for people have been to learn with a community, learn the essentials of things like JavaScript. Do you have any other tips for people that are maybe wanting to change careers or learn to code?
I mean, definitely again, like the ones you said, find a community, but how should I say this? Be persistent, I guess, because like with coding, you go up, you go down, you go up. Even after finding a job, you're like, ooh, like for example, the job right now I'm about to start, I am nervous. I am nervous, excited, anxious, all of the above. But you kind of have to like fight through it to kind of see. And when you actually start seeing like the results, you're like, wow, I have come so far. And how do you know you come so far? It's like when you actually kind of go back to your old code and you're like, oh my God, I wrote that. What the heck is that? When you actually can kind of say that, that's when you actually know you're actually improving yourself as well. So definitely, don't let that kind of fear like hold you back, because you are getting better. It's just web development takes a long time.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think, it's really good to look how far you've come, not just like how far you have to go kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's also like, don't get, I guess the other one would be don't get overwhelmed with the amount of technologies out there, especially now. I was lucky enough to get into web development about 3 years ago. If I were to get into web development or general development right now, I would be scared. Why? There's just so many things you have to learn. There's just so many things. But in reality, if you learn one thing pretty well, all of the other things just kind of go like a domino. Bah, 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 bah.
Sounds good. Easiest dominoes. One last thing before we wrap up. Why did you choose the Practicum by Yandex Bootcamp over learning off YouTube or other bootcamps or anything?
That's for me, like I said, I work better in a community. I actually like being able to talk to people about what I'm doing. So the community, again, that was definitely a big plus for me. And again, like you have a Slack group for your specific cohort, and that Slack group is very active, like very, very active. If you don't take advantage of that, you're kind of missing out a lot, So for me, that was a big selling point. Like I have a community that I can ask questions, and like because even sometimes even when you're like working by yourself and you talk to someone, you're like, hey, can you help me out with this? And then you try to explain what their problem is, you're like, oh, never mind, I got it, I know where I went wrong. So having that community is definitely very, very helpful for people.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that sounds great. I'll have to put a link in the description. But yeah, this episode's been sponsored by Practicum, so thanks to them for supporting the channel. And thanks, Danielle, for telling us all about your move into web development. It's been really cool to talk to you, and good luck with the job in the new year.